Hey Tim, here's your 299 D3XE, the new bucket, HM418 mulcher. Does have the rear tanks for fuel. Land management package with the aux cooler. Serial number LB301689. Gonna go over some of the basics of the machine. I'll probably break out another video for the mulcher and the cab display, some of the functions and operations in there. But simply put, it is a triple flange idler undercarriage. So you have 1, 2, 3 front and back. Some cats are spec'd with a dual or a single idler. A lot of the competitors are running a single dual idler. You do get more meat and better wear on these tracks because all the weight's spread out a little bit wider. They're also better to run triple flanges in steep terrain for woods applications. For when you get side loaded, they don't come off as easy. You do have a couple grease joints here for the oscillating roller frame, then 2 more up front. So you do have torsion axles on these. They will flex and maneuver when you're going over rough terrain. Some of the updates on the D3s, they did improve the drive motor hoses and guarding there. Before they had issues with some rocks and debris getting in there, so those are protected. And then going to the front, basically every joint that you have or every cylinder, you will have a grease zerk. So for instance, you got your top of your bucket cylinders there, both sides. You'll have another one down on the bottom at the pin and where the coupler goes. And then you'll also have some on the underside of the coupler for the coupler pins. I don't know if I can see them down there, but there are a couple grease zerks in there. On the back, you got your boom, your rear boom, and there is your vertical lift linkage here. These used to have zerks right there. There's still an old one, I believe, down here, if you can see it. But those have been relocated to these grease manifold locations up front. On this side, you will have your diesel exhaust fluid fill, and then your hydraulic fill. If I were you, I would probably lock this up. And I will actually do that right now for you. Just to prevent anybody that's unfamiliar with the machine from filling the hydraulic with diesel. Your sight glass is right down there inside. So we're in the green. The left tank, or sorry, driver's side right. So this is where you're gonna fill your fuel from. You can lock that up as well. And then on the other side here, same deal. You got a fill point. And the way this works, I'm gonna lock this door up so that it stays here. So these two tanks are linked together. There's a fuel line that runs both left and right side. There are some T-fittings. If you wanted to turn off a certain side or set like a reserve or something, you can do that. Engine compartment here. This tab's pretty handy. This little decal here, that's gonna show you all of your service points and your grease points. And they're on an hour interval per the line. So for instance, every 10 hours or every day you use it, you should grease that pin along with that one and that one, so on and so forth. Every 500 hours, you're doing these items on this line. It'll tell you all the service intervals on there. Sometimes it's hard to analyze all that with a simple diagram. That will be laid out in your operation maintenance manual as well. So this is the big engine. This guy's putting out 110 horse. It's got more power than like a traditional Cat D3K what they now call the D1. These are high stat drives, so they do share hydraulic for travel and implements. The filters right there. These are cartridge style filters. The engine oil filter is going to be back there. Engine air filter. And then you do have, for instance, like hydraulic coolant test ports throughout the machine as well. Your engine oil fill, your dipstick, and then your batteries with your battery disconnect. One of the things that you want to know is this orange light, whenever that is on, you want to leave the master disconnect in the on position. When you shut the machine down, this light will glow. It takes about 25-30 seconds for that light to come off before you can kill the master. And what that's doing is it's purging all of the DEF fluid back to the tank. So in cold weather conditions, these are designed to freeze up. The DEF fluid will freeze. There is a heating element inside the tank. And all that fluid is being purged from the lines back to tank so it can freeze safely. And then as you start the machine cold, it'll slowly heat that up and start pumping it back through the system. So these guys, unlike your original one, you can still lift the cooling package up. They will tilt up, but they are bolted down now. So a little bit harder to get to. You do have that top screen that can come up for cleaning your radiator fill. And kind of hard to see, but there is a glycol coolant sight glass back there. Try to get there we go. So if you ever notice your coolant reservoir is low, you can check your glycol glass, see if there's coolant in the cooler itself. And then if you do want to tip this cooler up, you just got to undo those two bolts on both sides and it will get up and out of your way. This guy does have a reversing fan. It is all automated. And we'll go through some of those settings on the screen there if you ever need to change those parameters. Your AC condenser, these are pretty nifty, so they don't stack the coolers. These are side-by-side coolers, your powertrain, your engine, and then your condensers on the back, so you don't have anything stacked where debris can get in there and plug them up. And then you do have your backup alarm and backup camera here. That's kind of the basics on the engine. These lights are guarded up. I'm gonna close this now. There's a greaser here on both sides. That's gonna lubricate the rear boom cylinder. They're kind of all, with all the guarding and stuff, you can't really get in there, so that's how they get to those. And then you do have your pre-cleaner air there. This cab is a single piece pressurized cab. There's two 15/16 on each side of this thing. You can crack those loose. This thing will lift up. It is on a gas strut assisted lift system. So under there is going to be your drive motors, your hydraulic valves, axle stuff, etc. That's going to be all under there. And if you do any deep cleaning, that's a good way to get everything out of there once a year or once every couple years or so. This guy is going to be your exterior cab air filter. There's more of those grease manifolds there for your vertical lift linkage. And this is going to be your safety bar. If you do ever work under this machine and you need to go under the boom, that is a safety lock that you can lock up on the cylinder to where if anything failed, you'll still have that mechanical lock there to keep that thing up. Talk real quickly about this mulcher. This top frame, good place where you can put a little pressure on it up against timber that's standing and then start working into your cut, and that'll push the timber away from the machine as long as you're leaning that forward. This guy actually works best if you fell a tree down and you can track over it. You got enough ground clearance for that. This thing works really great for back grinding, and you can kind of just hack away a little bit at a time. The stumps, you can just roll right up to it, start cutting. But you want to keep this thing as low as you can when you're cutting. It will throw debris around. There are some chains to kind of help eliminate that. And then you do have the polycarbonate door inside these compartments. Gives you access to your hoses and drive motors. You can kind of see here these two grease manifold Zerks here will lubricate different areas of this attachment. And you'll have a similar chart on this guy. It shows you how often you're going to want to do that. So every 10 hours, hit that top one. Every week or every 40 hours, hit that bottom one. This guy over here on the left, for instance, it's saying you can go 1,000 hours before you lubricate that. And then this one on the left front is going to be 10 hours as well. This pressure gauge, when you're running, your optimal cut's going to be in the green. So you're going to want to keep an eye on that. And if you're trying to hog too much material at one time, you'll see your pressures spiking up. So you kind of want to feather that and keep it in the green as best you can. If you're in the yellow, you're just not cutting enough. You need to go a little bit harder for more production. I will find out what teeth those are as well. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I'll have one of our parts guys look them up. This little ribbed area is kind of cool. So this is somewhat new to Cat, but these are your cut stops. So without them, you have to really be good at how much you're measuring and how much you're cutting. If you got too much of a cut, you'll just stall this thing out. And these stops will let you go up to a stump, for instance, and just place it down on the stump, and you're cutting that perfect amount every time. And those are designed to kind of be a buffer guard for your cut depth. So these hoses here, so they're Stucci couplers. They just thread on, thread off into the machine. And then you got your case drain line here. So what's nice about Stucci's is you can just start threading these on and powering over the hydraulic pressure that's in the system. I still recommend always bleeding the pressure off. And there's your other side. I still recommend bleeding the pressure off to make it easier for you. And I'm gonna jump in the cab and make a separate video for that on going over some of the controls.